What if hiring could be easier, more streamlined, and less time-consuming, so even when you're busy, you could still be smart about the way you hire? With ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards with just one click, so you can rest easy knowing your job is being seen by the right candidates. Then, ZipRecruiter puts its smart matching technology to work, actively notifying qualified candidates about your job within minutes of posting so you receive the best possible matches. That's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other hiring sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on the right candidates finding you, it finds them. And it's no wonder 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. ZipRecruiter, it's the smartest way to hire. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by growing businesses of all sizes and industries to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, my listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That is right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/M&M. That's ZipRecruiter.com/M&M. One more time to try it for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/M&M.
Hey, my name's Jack. I'm the founder and former editor-in-chief of Crack.com and the host of the new How Stuff Works comedic news and pop culture podcast, The Daily Zeitgeist. Our goal is to tell you about the ideas that are out there changing the world. We talk politics and news, but we also cover supermarket tabloids, which might seem stupid, but millions of people pass those every day, and they absorb the ideas on the cover whether they want to or not. We also take movies pretty seriously because when we picture something that we haven't experienced, you generally use movies. You probably picture Terminator 2 when picturing a nuclear explosion, even though that's not actually what they'd look like. Anyways, we're trying to take the temperature of what's affecting the national shared consciousness, which sounds a little more hippie-ish than we actually are. But fair warning, guys, some of the content can get a little edgy, so not for young ears, but trust us, it's all in good fun. So go to Apple Podcasts and listen and subscribe to The Daily Zeitgeist. It's very good, is our catchphrase. We're kind of workshopping it.
Back and cleaner than ever, Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. Herm Edwards in our studio here as we talk plenty of football with you on this Wednesday morning. College football playoff stuff. Paul Finebaum will join us coming up at the bottom of this hour with his thoughts on last night's rankings and everything else. Let me pay off our little tease here.
Right.
And we know that quarterback has become, or MVP, I should say, in the NFL has become basically purely a quarterback award. Only one of the last 10 MVP winners in the NFL was not a quarterback, and that was Adrian Peterson in 2012. But of the top 6 choices in ESPN.com's analyst poll, of the top 6 choices for MVP of the league, only one of them is not a running back, not a quarterback, and that one is
it's Todd Gurley. We didn't, either Herm nor I got that. We were guessing all around that and never said Gurley. Now, Kareem Hunt did get a first-place vote in that, but didn't end up in the top 6 there.
Would you care to guess who's number 1 in this voting here?
Carson Wentz.
Correct. 2?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady is correct, followed by Alex Smith. The top, this is, again, the midway point choices of ESPN.com's panel. Carson Wentz by a fairly healthy margin over Tom Brady. Then Alex Smith at 3, Todd Gurley, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson. That's the group right there. And as you pointed out, again, the rookie running back Kareem Hunt did get one first-place vote, but not enough to finish in the top 5 with those guys. So, John Gruden said earlier this morning on our show he thinks Gurley is right now the best running back in the National Football League.
Well, Herm and I were talking in the break, and I've said this before. I know Herm has as well. The running back of today is not just a running back anymore. No. It's a dual-threat guy who becomes that mismatch, whether lining up in the slot or running a route out of the backfield, and that can become your most dangerous weapon on offense because they can get you twofold.
Yeah, and the way that we play offense and the way it's set up now, it's a lot of one-back sets, a lot of 11 personnel, as they call it. With that being the case, now the running back, the complete running back, first of all, he's got to protect. He's got to be able to protect with the hots and the guy, when they bring pressure, when they bring 5-man pressure, he's got to be able to protect. Okay, but then he's got to be able to catch. He's got to be able to catch the ball in space, a good route runner, and then he's got to be able to run. And so with that being said, when you look at some of the teams that have these backs in place, Gurley happens to be one of them. he's touching the ball about 24 times a game, whether it's through running the football or catching the football. Nice balance there. You talk about Bell. Bell is averaging 29 touches a game, all right? And you watch him catch, you watch him run it. What's interesting to me is the Atlanta Falcons have this guy named Freeman, 17 touches. You wonder why the Atlanta Falcons are struggling? He doesn't touch it enough. He's got to touch it. If I'm coaching, I'm saying, hey, you see that guy, that 24-guy coach? You call that play you want. You can make formations, do whatever you want. He needs to touch the ball in a game 25 times. Whether you throw it to him 7 times and he runs the rest, I don't care. He has to touch it 25 times. That's the mandate.
How many times does Julio Jones have to touch it?
Well, Julio Jones will touch it. You're going to target Julio Jones, 12, 13 times a game. That's fine.
Okay, and then you have Mohamed Sanu and
that's fine.
Kevin Coleman, and they just got a lot of people.
It works like Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. The guy that touches it the most is Bell.
And then they have Antonio Brown.
And then they got Antonio Brown.
How many times does Bell touch it again?
Right here, he touches it 29 times.
29 times.
So you do the math, and you say if we run 65 plays or 70 plays, he touches the ball. Ezekiel Elliott touches it 25 times a game, almost 28 times a game. They run 65 plays. It doesn't matter. Players can get mad. You say, hey, look, we want to win. Our job is to win. I'm going to give this guy, and it's easier to get him the ball than anybody on the team because he sits behind the quarterback. It's easy. You can take a receiver away. You can double Julio Jones. Where do you go with the ball? You go to Sanu, you go to tight end. That's great. But the runner, Greeny, you could even get it to the runner, Greeny.
Give him the ball.
You could just if you could catch it up, we wouldn't put you under center because then that might hurt your hands. You just hit a little snap and you turn around and give it to him.
So how does that translate to defense? I saw an interesting thing in watching college football, and then calling the Temple Navy game.
There's no defense in college football.
But the one thing there is, and the one thing that teams are doing, and Bud Foster's been doing it for a little bit in Virginia Tech, is because we're seeing more teams start out in a nickel defense because of the 11 personnel or whatever spread out offense. So you're changing kind of that one linebacker position. In Virginia Tech, they call it the whip.
Yes.
And for Navy, they call it a striker.
Right.
Where it's not really a linebacker. It's a guy who's like
he's Darren Woodson.
It's like a hybrid.
He's Darren Woodson.
For Notre Dame, it says Drew Tranquill.
Yes.
It's like 5'11", like a 200, or yes. I think it's like 5'11", like 210 pounds, something like that. 6'2", I'm sorry, 6'2", like 211, but kind of a hybrid who can still be tough enough to play the run, but also isn't going to be a mismatch problem in the coverage. So is that what the change that's going on in the NFL?
Exactly right. And it's become, before the nickelback was a corner.
Right.
You put on a third receiver. Now, if you want to go dime, you take that other backer out. You play with one backer and you basically play with 2 corners, but it's not a corner. He's the hybrid safety. He's the guy that's about 6'2", he's 220 and can run. We see them. They're all over now. They're all, Cam Chancellor was the guy. He was kind of the prototype. Okay, get a Cam Chancellor guy. Okay, he can cover the tight end. We can bring him in the box. We bring him in the box. He knows how to play the runs. He has a gap responsibility in the run game because he becomes a linebacker. You blitz that guy. So all of a sudden, guys are looking at college players and go, okay, he's my hybrid guy. He's the guy that I'm going to put in the box. Has to have decent cover skills. Doesn't have to be a great cover guy, but can cover a tight end in the back.
Can't be a mismatch.
No. And he can hold up against the run because remember, there's only so many runs you have with one back.
Right.
You don't have a lead blocker on him. You know what I'm saying?
The whole idea is this more the spread offense to have more room to run.
Exactly. So those are the type of guys you look for now in college football.
It's amazing. The tweener used to never have a position in the NFL. Now it's the pass rusher. Now that third linebacker is kind of getting phased out a little bit in place of this hybrid because of the formations from the offensive side.
The game continues to the pro game continues to resemble the college game more and more as opposed to what used to be the opposite. Mike Herm Edwards is here. I wanted to ask you also about Tampa because that's another place where things seem to be going in the wrong direction, and a lot of it, as most things do, start with the quarterback. And I saw a lot of reaction to the play that Mike Evans winds up getting suspended for. And Mike Golic said earlier this morning, justifiably so, and he wasn't at all surprised that the suspension was not lifted on appeal. That play is really provoked, at least a little bit, by Jameis Winston, who's out there kind of sticking his fingers in people's back and all that kind of thing. So, Herman, as you watch right now, what are you seeing in Jameis Winston?
Well, you see a guy that still he has leadership qualities, but he still falls into that sometimes being a little immature and not handling the position correctly. What he did on the sideline there, that's not called for. You don't do that. I mean, and look, after he reflects, he's going to say, "What am I doing?" He did. Say what am I doing? And I know Jameis. I coached him. Look, his intentions are good sometimes, but sometimes emotionally, he takes on this personality where he feels like, no. What you got to do is you got to play good. Emotionally, you got to play better, okay? Not you can talk so much and that's fine, but eventually you got to play better. And so that's where they're at. This is a team that's a little bit out of balance. Why? They've got these gifted receivers, and so I've always said this: when you have gifted players that play on the edges, and you have two good tight ends, you become a pass coach. You just become pass happy. And before you know it, you're just kind of throwing it. You're just throwing it, and you get out of balance, and now there's 38 passes a game and only 22 runs. That ain't helping you a whole lot, especially if the quarterback's turning it over. And your defense is not very good. So you got to protect your defense in a sense. Now, if you're throwing it a bunch and you're scoring 40 points, that's one thing. Yeah. But that's not the case.
No, it's not. And I was right. It was Mike Evans who had said that, it was childish what he did, and he was wrong in what he did. I have not heard Jameis say anything about that just yet. And you're right about, I can tell you from the field side of it, from a leadership, Jameis is a vocal leader.
Yes.
But if you're not playing well, your words are a little more hollow. They just are. When you keep saying these things to try and lead and profess these things, and you're not getting it done on the field, it kind of loses its effectiveness.
And Jameis is this kind of guy now. He'll reflect and he'll know. And people say, well, he turns the ball over. Let me tell you something about Jameis Winston. He's going to turn it over his whole career. Get over it. He's Brett Favre. Now, he doesn't have Brett Favre's. He hadn't hung shingles up and all that, but hopefully one day he will. But he's that type of mentality, and you got to know that. So you say, well, he's got to cut down his interceptions. No, he's going to try to make a big play. That's who the guy is, okay? And you're going to have to live with it. And you can live with it when he's throwing 30 touchdown passes and he throws 12 interceptions a year. You go, it's okay. It's a wash, right? But when you don't have the production and you're turning it over, then that becomes a problem.
I'm really fascinated by the leadership piece of it as well, because that was the part that I thought was so strong coming in. And now you watch some of the stuff, especially that thing on the sideline. It's very tough to be I would think, you guys would know far better than I, obviously, to be the guy who's telling everyone, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to lead this way, and all that kind of stuff. And then you're out there like doing that kind of stuff. And one of your teammates, your best player on your whole team, winds up getting thrown out of a game because he's coming to your defense on the sideline. So that's a terrible situation going on right now in Tampa. Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive is celebrating 5 years and more than 500 cars donated to vets. To learn more, visit keystoprogress.com. Turning our attention to some of the college football. Mike and I were talking earlier this morning. We were talking to the Oklahoma coach.
Yes.
Lincoln Riley. And I was thinking about trying to get a college football team ready to play a huge game a week after having just won a huge game.
Yeah.
So now I point you to Ohio State. And again, I don't want to hear from the Iowa fans that I'm dismissing them. I'm not. Iowa's a good team. Iowa had Penn State on the ropes. They're a very good team. But they're not 21 points better than Ohio State. Ohio State had that miracle comeback win against Penn State. The whole world is lauding them. Mm-hmm. There are players here how all of a sudden we control the Big Ten. We could be back in the Final Four, everything else. They go out the next week and they just lay a total egg on the road in a tough place to play against a very good team. So tell me about getting a team ready to play after a huge emotional win.
Yeah, it's difficult in the sense that sometimes players feel like our emotion alone and what we just accomplished will put points on the board. Well, it won't. Just because what you did last week, it doesn't carry over to this week. And I think coaches have to be very alert of that, especially when you get into the meetings. For me, it was always when we won a game, I was more critical.
Yes, you were. Yes, coaches are.
You're right?
Yes,
I was more critical. It wasn't like, hey, it was like, wait a minute, boys. This and it. And I show them, I say, hey, let me show you guys something. The third quarter, we're only leading by 7. And look what happened. They dropped the play here. They missed a block here. I said, All of a sudden, boys, we could have been down by 10, and you kind of bring them back to reality. Sometimes, I remember one time we were on a roll, boy. We were rolling pretty good. We had won about 3 in a row, and you could just tell, the air in the room. So I went, okay. So I told my guy, I said, hey, go down to the old dime store down there and go get me a balloon. He said, what? I said, get me a balloon. I said, what? I said, yeah, a balloon. He said, Coach, you want a balloon? Yeah, the ones you blow up. I said, a balloon? Yeah. He said, what color? Any color. Green, purple. I don't care. Just get a balloon. So he goes down and gets me. He gives it. So I tied the balloon on a string, and I walk in the meeting, and the balloon is and it's up over my head like this, see? And I'm walking the meeting, getting ready to dress the team. And you know how you guys are talking before the head coach comes in. Everybody's kind of like, hey, have fun. We 4 games, we won in a row. We're rolling in New York, see? And I'm going, okay. And I walk in there, and everybody's looking. Hey, coach, why you doing it? And then I do like this. Pop! I pop the balloon. That's how fast it can happen, man. When you get full of yourself, somebody will pop your bubble. And all of a sudden, it got real quiet. And I said, now, this week, this is who we got. The message was sent. There's certain things you got to do as a coach, and you know your team better than anybody. You got to just go, I only got to say one thing and get their attention. That got their attention. But you got to do that. Coach knows his team better than anybody. He'll figure that out, but it's hard. And every week is a different way of motivating your team. People think, well, Coach Herm gives a speech all the time. No, I don't give a speech all the time. It's according to what I feel. I've always said coaches and players' relationships are very important because you know what makes guys go. You understand the buttons you have to push. You're always pushing buttons as a coach. That never stops. Win, lose, or draw. You're always pushing the buttons. That's the fun part of coaching, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and at times we saw through your little games.
Oh, yeah.
Did you win? Did you win the next game?
Oh, absolutely. That's when we went on to we won 7 in a row.
There are things that can get to a player, no doubt about it. But I got to expect that for a big win. Going in guarded the next day, that the coaches were going to
get you.
They're going to jump on you.
You almost know it.
The littlest thing, and they are going to magnify it so you don't start feeling too good about yourself. And sometimes after a loss, they mute it a little bit for you, so you don't get too low about it. And it can be a more It can be after a loss, it can be more constructive more than yelling, unless it's just some horrible mistakes. But after a win, it's like they want to break you down a little bit and say, okay, let's not feel too good.
Right, and another thing you do is, Greeny, is you first of all, you meet with your staff, and you tell them, hey, look, this is what I want this week now. You got me? And then the next thing you do is this. For me, there was certain guys on the team, the leadership group I had, and I'd go see them. Say, here's the deal now. I'm coming at you. I'm coming at you. You got me? And they go, got it, coach. I'll go tell Curtis, hey, I got it, coach. Okay. Chad, hey. And during practice, all of a sudden, I'm calling him out. And I go, ooh, Coach called, what's he called out? We just won 3 in a row. Why are you calling him out? And all of a sudden, you get people's attention. So you got to do it different ways.
That's how I justified getting yelled at. I always felt the coach is just doing that to kind of use me as an example of what direction he wants to go.
Or Curtis Martin is now in the Hall of Fame.
Hey, I'm telling you,
Chad,
good to have great players.
For those who don't know who Herman was referring to, Mike, presented by
he was the best.
Progressive Insurance. Paul Finebaum coming up on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Time. So looking over all this stuff, Mike, let's reflect a little bit on the college football playoff that we saw yesterday and an enormous weekend of games. And Herman, you jump in wherever you like. But Mike, you started the show this morning by breaking them down. We have as good a slate this coming.
We do.
This would be a good day for bad weather.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
you're at home now.
As a fan.
You got it tuned in. You're going to watch it all.
You don't have to move because we have more good games this week than you could possibly
There are 7 ranked games this week. So all the fun you're going to have about your hypotheticals and what could happen, why isn't my team here or there? Mark Richt said it best from a head coach at the U. He said, we're fine where we are. Because if we keep winning, we'll move up. And if we lose, we're going to move down.
You control it.
And that's easy enough for the coach. But, in college now, Herm, the players, and we weren't a part of the social media when we were in college.
That's what they got to deal with.
That's the biggest thing is now, my son does a show right after the rankings on Periscope and ESPN Radio with Jason Fitz. Within an hour, they have close to 400,000 or 500,000 views because people are going nuts on Twitter.
That's exactly right.
About this, and the players are involved in that and reading all of this. So to keep them kind of tempered down a little bit has got to be interesting.
It's hard, but in today's world, I give these young athletes and just young people in general kudos that they can focus on the job at hand and still do other things. Their brain is they multitask very well. And they put things in the proper order for the most part. And so this is just a part of how they grew up. This is who they are now. Right. I mean, for us, it's like, really? And as a coach, you got to be aware of that. Say, okay, but you got to know where to cut it off as well. But this is who they are. I mean, they start this in high school. I mean, they're a part. This is a part of what they do to get them excited about playing or whatever it may be. So it's just part of it, but as you guys mentioned, this Saturday.
But bottom line is we've had the same four for the second week in a row.
Yes.
But Georgia plays a number 10 Auburn, and a lot of people are leaning toward Auburn. Number 2 Alabama plays number 16 Mississippi State. I think a lot of people still think Alabama will handle their business.
They're on the road.
They're on the road.
That's a hard place
Notre
to
Dame
play.
at 3 is on the road at the U, which is undefeated and played their best game of the year last week against a ranked Virginia Tech team. Clemson, amazingly enough, has considered the easiest game, and you know who it is?
It's Florida State.
It was Florida State, who everybody expected to be there, but then Francois, their quarterback, goes down in week 1, so that changed the dynamics of everything.
And say this, for a Florida State team that has a pedigree, and certainly has players on that team who are going to be in the NFL, this becomes their Super Bowl.
Yeah, it does.
They've had a terrible season.
Their season.
Nothing can change
exactly
that.
Right.
This is their Super Bowl. And then Wisconsin, if you want to throw them into the mix, and so that would incorporate every team in the top 8.
Yes.
They play Iowa, which is the toughest game they have remaining.
That's right.
Or I guess Michigan might wind up being, but Iowa's ranked ahead of them. Michigan's not even ranked
they are.
right now. So they all have, I mean, it's sitting right there. Every single, I can sell you all 8 of those teams in their games.
Oklahoma, TCU are 5 and 6, and it is clearly, without question, because there are some that think even if Miami loses and then wins the ACC title over a highly ranked Clemson, they may still be able to get in. Truly, Oklahoma and TCU is winner has a chance. Loser's done.
Right. I agree with that.
Without a doubt. Loser is done. Oklahoma, TCU. They'll have their second loss. To me, I think they'll be done.
And I'm sorry to say this, but I think Notre Dame is in that situation, too.
Oh, if Notre Dame loses?
Right.
Oh, they're done.
I think Miami's, if they lose a close game, has a chance.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Notre Dame does not.
This is the game where both teams, if they lose, are out. Oklahoma, TCU, where Miami still may have an outside chance. Wow. Yeah, Notre Dame's done if they lose a game.
I agree with you. Can I just give a very quick update here, by the way, on a part of our breaking news story? We have been covering all morning long this issue involving the 3 UCLA freshmen, most famously, of course, among them LiAngelo Ball, the middle of the 3 Ball brothers at UCLA, who are being held right now in their hotel in China. And the story that we have now that has just come across from Arash Markazi, he has confirmed that the trio of players allegedly stole sunglasses from the Louis Vuitton store. So we were wondering what they did.
Right,
we know that shoplifting had been the question there. We know they're not going to play in the game there against Georgia Tech. We know that LeVar said everyone's making a big deal out of it, and it isn't a big deal. We don't know a lot of the circumstances, so we're not going to speculate here. I'm just going to keep passing along these updates as we get them. But that is the latest that we have. We have confirmed that a trio of players allegedly stole sunglasses from the Louis Vuitton store.
And we don't know how long they may be in China. I mean, as we said earlier, they do this in L.A. at a Louis Vuitton store in L.A. I'm sure they're out and home and probably not playing and all that still, but they may be in China when their teams go home.
Oh, yeah.
We have no idea where this is going to go because it's a different country.
Yeah, this is the dad has done a good job of raising his sons, okay? I mean, not what he does and all that stuff, but his sons have been pretty good, his kids. This is not good. To say it's not a big deal, it's a big deal. It is a big deal because when you think about what they were trying to do, it makes no sense. It's just, what are you doing? I mean, this is a bad look for the UCLA basketball team. It's a bad look for his son and for the other young men that were involved in this. So it is a big deal. You actually went into a store and you're trying to steal. When is stealing not a big deal? It's a big deal.
Oh, if there isn't some mistake here, it's a very big deal.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like we brush this stuff off. No, you don't brush it off. You don't steal.
And if you
don't do that.
If you read the laws they don't brush this stuff off.
No,
in China.
they do not.
They have picked a very bad place to make this mistake, if indeed they've made it. Again, this is all picture allegedlys in all the right places. I mean, we can still hope that there's just some mistake being made here.
Yeah, and it's a mistake. But here again, look, you're represent the United States, by the way, not only UCLA.
Yeah.
Right? You're ambassadors for basketball, whether you like it or not. Okay? And you go over there and you do this. Well, what does that? What does that make us look like?
No, it's again, assuming that this is indeed what has happened, and we'll wait. Let's wait and see what the facts.
Hopefully, this
are.
does not happen. Yeah. Hopefully, maybe it's an error.
That's what we can hope for.
We're hoping that.
Herman, you're the best.
Herm.
Thank you so much, as always, for coming in. Paul Finebaum will jump in next here with his thoughts on the college football stuff, and we'll keep an eye on what goes on in China as we continue after this word.
Home isn't just a place; it's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you, whether you're at home, your business, or online. We help keep you safe with security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
All right, super busy. Paul Finebaum's ready to go from the Paul Finebaum Show. Let's dive right into it. Good morning, sir. And let's start with this. As you were diving through all of this last night, I just mentioned at SportsCenter there's no change in the top five. So to you, of all the decisions that the committee made that we saw yesterday, which were the most significant?
Well, I'm most intrigued by where Wisconsin is, and I know that's a talked-about subject already. I'm really interested in Auburn making it into the top 10, and I think the Auburn story is pretty self-explanatory. If Auburn wins out, now the chance of that is pretty slim, but if they do, I think they'll be in the college football playoff. The more interesting dilemma, I think, is Wisconsin. Could a Big Ten champion, undefeated, possibly get left out? Most say no way, but you have to look to last year. Penn State did not get in as the Big Ten champions. Not that this committee really cares about precedent. We're not talking about Supreme Court rulings here. We're talking about 13 people, not the same 13 people that were there last year, and especially the fact that Barry Alvarez, the Wisconsin AD, is no longer on that committee.
So, Paul, in your eyes, if Wisconsin is undefeated and the Big Ten champ, obviously that goes hand in hand, should they be in?
Not necessarily, Mike, and if things ended the way they do today, I don't think they would get in. Now, Wisconsin has some decent games left. I wouldn't go overboard on talking about Iowa and Michigan and a win over a two-loss Penn State or Ohio State or possibly Michigan State as being a committee buster. But just for the sake of argument, and you can take this any way you want, and I heard you mention earlier with Herbie, Alabama and Georgia play the epic game in the championship. I don't think much changes there. I think they both possibly get in. Notre Dame wins out. I think they would get in. Clemson wins out. I think they get in. And what about Oklahoma, assuming the Sooners run the table? I think all of those are going to be ranked ahead, assuming they don't lose, of a no-loss Wisconsin team. I'm just not overwhelmed by Wisconsin's schedule. I know they played BYU. BYU is a good name, but they're a terrible team this year. And some could say, what about Alabama beating Florida State? Well, I think Alabama's made up for it, or will have made up for it by the time we get to Selection Sunday.
Mike and Mike, Paul Finebaum is with us. Now, historically, politics have played a very large role in college football. No one knows that better than you do. At this stage, we are dealing with, as you mentioned, the people in that room and them alone. What, if anything, do you think politics will play in all of this? Because, again, we're talking about leaving an unbeaten Big Ten champion out of the party here. How would the political part of that factor in your opinion?
Well, I think it does hurt that Alvarez is not there. Now, he would have to excuse himself, but he'd still be outside eating snacks and cookies while his friends were going and coming. Now, I know that if it happened, Jim Delaney, who may be the most influential person in college football. He's the Big Ten commissioner, would scream bloody murder. But I'm sorry, that's not going to change things. I just don't think it really matters. Now, I think you could say this for any conference, including the SEC. A lot of people think the SEC is bulletproof, but if you could have had a scenario last year or the year before where a 2 or 3 or 4 loss Florida team had won. I don't think they were not getting in. Now I realize it's different being a 2 or 3 loss team versus an undefeated, but I think your schedule does matter and your resume does matter. And Wisconsin is not going to get any credit. I mean, they have a win over BYU and they have a win over Florida Atlantic. That may be more impressive over Lane Kiffin right now than BYU, but it's not going to get them in unless things change, because there are really a lot of good schools at the top. And I left out Miami. If Miami runs the table, and they're going to be in as well. So there's not much room at the end. And I think what you would get then, guys, you'd have the whole nother conversation, should we go to 8, which a lot of people think is a good idea.
Let's talk about Alabama for a moment, who takes on a ranked, obviously, Mississippi State, number 16. Then they have their gimme game against Mercer before they go to Auburn, which is number 10 in the polls right now. How concerned should fans in Tuscaloosa and of Alabama be about this team that is just going through the injury bug, especially at linebacker? Are they vulnerable right now?
They are, and I spoke to Nick Saban over the weekend when we were in Tuscaloosa, and it's something he's been concerned about since the first game when they lost a couple of linebackers, and they keep losing them. Now, Mike, they're better equipped than any school in the country to deal with depth, but at some point it does begin to affect you. But I mean, we're in the 11th week of the season. The attrition level is pretty high across the board, and it will get worse. But they have their 2 most dangerous road games of the year. Mississippi State is a really good team. Auburn potentially could be extremely good. Now, if Auburn beats Georgia, then I think all bets are off in the Iron Bowl, because the stakes would be unbelievably high. The pressure on Alabama would be enormous. But I do believe this team is built, and this program is built to withstand pretty much anything. Now, losing a quarterback would be maybe the X factor, but I think they can navigate the waters. At some point, they will be in a critical situation. They haven't been there yet.
Paul Finebaum with us, brought to you by Goodyear Tires, as hardworking as college football's most blimp-worthy athletes. Goodyear, official sponsor of the college football playoff. What do you make of Oklahoma's 62-52 win over Oklahoma State? We had their coach Lincoln Riley on earlier this morning, and even I, who enjoy a high-scoring game a lot more than the former defensive player sitting next to me does, even I at some point said, this is kind of a joke here. And we had Lincoln Riley on, and he made all of the defenses of his defense and of the conference's defenses that you would expect. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I respect Lincoln a lot, but you can't do anything about a bad defense. And as that game was unfolding, Greeny, the Twitterverse was in an uproar over it. And I think it could hurt. Right now, I think of the top 5 or 6, they are the Big 12 is the most vulnerable. Now, if TCU beats Oklahoma, it changes the narrative a little bit, because you think a little more of Gary Patterson and the defense. But Oklahoma could be the odd man out. But having said all that, the odds of it ending the way it is right now are very, very slim, if not infinitesimal.
Paul, the big game in the Golic household is obviously Notre Dame at Miami, and me and my wife have kind of been keeping it close to the vest on Notre Dame. Now all of a sudden she's out on Twitter saying it's a 2-touchdown game. I'm making stupid bets again that just get me into trouble. Are we getting a little overconfident here? What do you think about this one?
Listen, I may be a Notre Dame fan this week. If this is even possible, Mike, I may be more unpopular among Miami fans than even Notre Dame fans. So this is a very difficult game for me. But I do like Notre Dame. Miami played a very good game against Virginia Tech, but I'm not impressed with their overall resume. And Mark Richt has done a phenomenal job resurrecting a moribund program. But assuming Notre Dame can get healthier Saturday night, they should win this game. Now, I'm not sure I'll go to along with Mrs. Golic picking a 2-touchdown win, but I do think they'll get the victory and be in a great position. After that, Stanford will be the last remaining obstacle to get back into the playoffs.
And you see these teams every week, and you follow the SEC as closely as any person. So the 2 big boys have 2 big games. Again, we mentioned Bama on the road at Mississippi State, Georgia at Auburn. Herbie on record this morning saying he thinks Auburn could win that game. Do you think either of them have a real chance to stub their toe this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think of the 2, Georgia is far more vulnerable. I mean, Auburn is a tough team to fall in love with, because in big games they have not performed well. The Clemson game, they had a really good shot at winning. They couldn't pull the trigger in the red zone. And then just it's almost impossible to explain how they could blow a 20-point lead at Tiger Stadium. But that has been Gus Malzahn's MO. It's really interesting to think about this for a second. And I know folks around the country are going to go, what are you talking about? But if Gus Malzahn were to lose both of these games, he could seriously be on the hot seat. And for this reason, if you go back, if you add up the two losses, let's say they lose to Georgia and Alabama, which would be two of the best teams in the country, like 1 and 2, he would be 0-8 in the last 4 years against his two biggest rivals. And if you go back to 2013, his first season, he beat Georgia on what was famously called the prayer at Jordan-Hare, that unbelievable pass that got flipped around a couple of times and was a miraculous touchdown. And I think you both know what I'm about to say. The Alabama game that year was the most famous play we've seen in a long time, the kick six. So you can't take those two out of the equation, but he would be 0-8. And I think even though there is uproar at Auburn, the athletic director, Jake Jacobs, announced his resignation the other day, fans would be up in arms. Malzahn is not that popular, even though Auburn is number 10 in the country right now.
All right, always great fun, and there's nothing more fun than just chewing through all these possibilities.
Yeah.
Paul, thank you so much.
Paul.
We'll see you later.
My pleasure, guys.
Hey girl, have you done something new with your scales? Using new moisturizer? Nice. It really brings out the hazel in your eyes. Oh, hold on. Are you using whitening strips too? Your fangs look good, girl. Really good.
A really charming snake charmer? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Wait, what? Have you been doing Pilates too?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
18 years of Mike and Mike. Congratulations, guys. Mike Greenberg. I never thought I would become friends with a guy that likes caprese salads and eats their hamburgers with a knife and fork. Thank you for your friendship. Mike Golic, all the great advice you've given me and some of the meaningful conversations we've had. Thank you, guys. Congratulations on a long run. And whatever you do going forward, hopefully it's as big a success as Mike and Mike was. Congratulations, guys.
Oh, it's nice.
He's such a good guy.
A good guy, and so way into golf. I didn't expect that out of him.
He's delusional.
Yeah.
When it comes to golf.
Oh, that whole thing. What was it with Lee Trevino?
Well, no, it started with Gary Player.
Gary Player.
Then it turned into Lee Trevino.
It was unbelievable.
He picked a fight. Telling Gary Player and then Lee Trevino you're going to beat them in golf is like picking a fight with Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield.
I get that as an athlete, your mindset is to think you're the best at everything, but that's normally in your sport. That's like going in and pulling like an old-time great NBAer who's still, up and doing his thing a little bit and saying, oh, I'll take them in one-on-one. I mean, come on. I mean, you got to,
and again, I love Booger.
Oh, me too.
But it's one thing if he was like a +2 handicap.
Yeah.
Like if John Smoltz said, I could beat Gary Player right now, I could live with that.
Okay.
Because he might. Booger is a double-digit handicap.
Is Booger, who's better, Booger or me?
No, Booger's better than you.
He is better than me?
But you don't play.
Oh, no, I play 4 times a year.
Yeah, but you wouldn't say you could beat Gary Player either.
No, I wouldn't. I'd say I could, outdrink some of those guys.
See, I don't want to say what I'm about to say because I know I could just see the text immediately coming in.
Say it.
I'm better than Booger.
Well, I thought that was a given. I
don't think Booger thinks I'm better than Booger. He beat me once. He beat me when we played at Marion in Philly. I'm not making any excuses. I didn't have a good day, and he had a great day.
He straight up beat you or beat you with a stroke?
No, straight up beat me.
Oh.
Well, he's not that far behind me. My index is like 8-point-something. His is probably, I don't even know exactly what it is. But let's put it this way.
Say double, I thought you meant in the high teens he was. He's not.
No, I think he's probably like a 12 or a 13.
And I wouldn't be able to affect him mentally like I can you.
Probably not.
No, I wouldn't be able to. He's stronger mentally than you.
But the point is, he's not beating Gary Player.
No, he's not beating Gary Player. And that was an interesting mindset there.
But he is a good guy, and thank you, brother.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. Sports Center brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Other wireless providers say they're going to cut your bill in half. Who knows what kind of coverage you're going to get. With Straight Talk Wireless, you get nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks, and their no-contract unlimited plan, just $45 a month.
Okay, you know that we're going to be getting a ton of these. Joe tweets, how can Paul Finebaum think the SEC deserves 2 teams in the college football playoff and an unbeaten Big Ten champ not get in?
Because, and a lot of people will point, obviously, to the schedule, and you look at the strength of schedule. Alabama, it says 46, and Wisconsin is 73. Wisconsin.
That'll go up a little. I mean, Wisconsin,
it
they're
will.
going to play Iowa, and they're going to play either Ohio State or Michigan State.
In a vacuum, I get what the tweeter is saying. But, I think most people think Georgia and Alabama are the top 2 teams in the country. And I don't think anyone, even the most hardcore Wisconsin fan, would think, oh, yeah, we're one of the top 2 teams in the country. I would be amazed if they would think that.
Well, you can't prove it is the problem. Like, you might think it, but you can't prove it.
I'll say it again. Undefeated, I think what Herbie said last night got misconstrued a little bit when he said you can't put everything. I think he says, I'm paraphrasing, everything on wins and losses, which basically you do put a lot on wins and losses.
Sure.
But a one-loss team who had a difficult schedule and their only losses to a top team, as opposed to an undefeated team that plays 2 or 3, no power, out of Power 5 conference, smaller schools. To me, I can see where you'd go with the one-loss team. You're supposed to pick the best 4, not just, okay, let's start with the undefeateds, they're automatic, and then let's just go from there. You can't do that in this particular system when you're trying to pick the best 4 teams.
For what it's worth, Wisconsin's strength of record is 8th in the country right now, and they're 8.
They are.
So that seems like, they're in the right place right now. And will it move up? Yes, their strength of record, if they keep winning, will improve because they have better games in front of them than all the ones they have behind them. They have to play Michigan. Even if Michigan is not ranked when they play them, they're still an above-average team.
Their remaining strength of schedule is 13th.
Yeah, so that's going to go way up. I mean, their overall strength of record, if they win out, it's going to go way up.
It is.
The question is, will it make it into the top 4?
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. I can finish with this.
Okay.
Booger texted, let me see. Did he text that to Brooksy, or did he text it to me also?
Brooksy, by the way, is the best golfer of all of you, right?
Brooksy is better than both of us, yes.
Yeah.
Booger texted, Brooksy, you're only as good as your last round, and in our last round, I beat him.
That's fair statement.
No, I'm not saying no. Here's the point. Booger and I are comparable. With his advantage in mental toughness, if he and I played against each other in a way that really mattered, he'd have a good chance to beat me. He would have no chance to beat Gary Player, and that's the only point I was trying to make.
If the 3 of us played, or the 4 of us, include Brooksy, and you had to drink 1 beer per hole, who would win?
You.
Okay.
Booger doesn't drink at all. He doesn't. He doesn't drink any alcohol at all.
Oh, well, that would make it really difficult for him then.
and you would have less fun playing with him than anybody else. Have a great day. We'll see you back in Better Than Ever tomorrow. Mike and Mike.